Okay, where are we so far? We've gotten through where all the corporations have floated. Something of a weird sort of trade rush is happening in this game. We're in the midst of it. The 5Es are going to come out. There's a stack of money here that says they are. But there might be something before that. Nah, that's going to be the first company to pull one out. He can only grab one, but he's got enough cash he can probably get 2 permanent trains easily enough. What are the 6s? Are they only 600? Yeah. With release of shares and whatnot. So the Boston and Maine is in pretty good shape. That's kind of caused by investor confidence in it, which boosted its position. We've got some danger places, players who are holding stuff that's going to collapse. It's no big deal if your miner collapses. You just lose it. You don't lose the game. But you lose the value of it. There are no more corporations, which means the miners aren't going to be able to convert. There's a couple left if anybody wants to commit suicide over there. And some of the corporations are not in the best of shape. I mean, this one just started. It has a lot of shares available, so it looks like it's okay. But if this rush goes fast, that could end up crashing him. Okay. I woke up sometime around noon, fucked around with Raid for a bit. A big new update where there's like real clan fighting as opposed to just outspend each other with saved resources or cash if you want to. And so I fucked around with that for a bit. I want to get an operating round and maybe a merger done. And then I'll probably go back to sleep for a while. It's not so hot today, but, whatever. Running my hose. I do sort of what you would do with a power hose. I'm working on getting some of the moss off my driveway. I don't know. I did a pretty good job of this the last year or two of my wife's life, and then maybe the year after that I kept going, but the last couple of years have been, I don't know, just a blur of playing Raid mainly. With the miners, but unfortunately the BP should not be face up. It got trashed into, I think, the Boston and Maine combo over there. I just forgot to flip it. I only have two miners still left for however long they live, which means actually the Hudson goes next. I gotta be careful with this one because there's a shit ton of money here, which means I'm not allowed to buy a train or anything, but I am allowed to buy 2 trains here, which could be the 2 5s or it could be this 3 and a 5. Giving enough money to him to buy a 5. And that would allow me to have 2 5s between my companies in an interesting way where, see, here's the thing. What I really want is 2 permanent trains on this and a permanent train on that. And I don't know how to manage that. I obviously don't have the cash right now. But if I put a 5 over here, I don't think I get that, but if I have 2 5s here when this crashes, I don't get that either. I'd have to time things really well and shift enough money to buy the 3 train, and I don't know how to do that. Like, I don't know how to make sure that I get the timing right. Those privates are generating some pretty nice revenues, to tell you the truth. This guy made 110. Okay, not too exciting. It's a 3 train. But that big old 4 train ended up making 160, so 80 and 80 by running, by cheating. That's how I did it. Never mind. Problem is, this damn thing's my end point. And, I was looking at, oh, well, I can hit Boston and I can hit down this way, but no, it's all coming out of the same place. Common XX situation. Again, I'm just not comfortable and familiar with playing XXs. I used to play XX probably 4 to 6 times a year. I don't know if I've played one in the last year. I really don't. And you really do get rusty, man. So that means I'm going to have to come out of this. I could come down this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, and it'll still be decent. 70, 110, 140. So it's 70 and 70, which is pretty good. Other option is coming down this way. It does the same thing. I can't hit Boston is the problem, and I don't think there's anything I can do about it. So I'll take the 70 and 70. B&M is going to pay $40. Drop a dot here. I think this is going to be a really important location. It's hard to tell compared to this. If we look, the eventual Boston, New Haven, Hartford. New Haven is worth 70 in the eventual, so I feel like going south might be a good move. The E-trains are able to skip doinkers. They don't get the double value though, unless they're paired up with another train. Speaking of which, there's $500 for the first 5 train. That's going to force a phase change. The big question is, do I want to buy this train at this point? I don't think I'm going to get another 5. Let me see. New York Central is going to buy a 5. New York New Haven looks like it has enough cash to buy a 5. Money's open in this one, by the way. I've had my words in multiple directions about, whether or not hidden trackable information should just be open. I'm of the opinion that it makes sense that it's not, but corporate treasuries should be public, I think, no matter what. There's all kind of record-keeping laws. Honestly, those laws didn't really exist in the 19th century, though, so I don't know. But I have room for another train. I don't have the money for it right now. I think that means I don't want to give $300 to the Hudson for its 3 train, because that doesn't give it anywhere near enough cash to buy the next train that it's going to get a chance at. Which means I'm probably going to be buying a 6 train and hoping for the best. Now, I know that this is the turn where I need money. There are no Boston and Mains out there. My par is 120, so $480 goes into my treasury. I won't. Oh, I didn't make my run. Wait. Okay. All I had was a 3 train. I looked at what the best I can do, and it is, I believe, a 50, 60, 70, 80, 120. That leaves me at the 12 that I'm at there. So I don't go forward in the space. I make 12 a share, which is going to pay into this. I'll be back. Since these are par, these are IPO shares, they only make 120 per. I've done the run. Everybody got their 12 a share. At the 120, again, this is 480. Do I need all this? Probably not. Keep some in there for blasting money. I do have another dot. Of course, somebody can buy from that. It's the same cost as buying from there. There's never any reason except stealing IPO shares. But then again, if I get enough cash, I can redeem shares. So whatever. And those redeemed shares do go up in value. 3 of these would be 360, which gets me the 600 easily. What about 2 of them? 2 of them's 240. actually sounds like the amount I want. So I will put these in and grab 240 bucks, 250, 300. That gives me my 600 bucks there for the 6 train if I need it. Maybe the Hudson just goes aside and I have a I just lose it and I have a corporation that's making me money. It's making me some money here. The problem is, I think if I engineer things correctly, I can keep the Hudson. And that might be worth it. Can I keep the Hudson and have 2 6Es on here? Maybe. Central Vermont increases New Haven. That's going to give me a run for a 3 train of 50. I needed this to get to here on 1. 50, 90, 140. Okay. That's cool. But I don't know, I don't think I want to pay it out. Let's look. What does 140 do for me? 285, 385, 425. I don't make my 500. I've got no way to generate a few extra bucks to get that 5 train. That's a shame. That also means, well, maybe paying out half I do. Huh? How could that be? I'm swallowing the whole amount. If I swallow the whole amount, I don't get enough. So swallowing half isn't going to get me more. It can kind of even the issue out, but yeah. So I think I'm going to pay out because 80% of it's in here. So that's going to be 14 a share. That is enough to let me go up to the 145 space. I'm going to need to keep increasing my revenue to keep moving forward. It's really hard to get here. Really hard. This doesn't look like a game that's going to generate huge amounts of money. If these were, I don't know. There's some trains that are like rated like the E's in this, and I think they're actually called E's, but they double on their own, like, but they're small. Here you have to buy 2 of the big trains, 2 of the permanent trains, and then you link them together and they just run a richer route among the big cities that you can hit. But once you get those, you can make big runs, but I don't know how likely that's going to be. So yeah, paying out, I guess, at 14. And after I pull the 80% in, I have that. Now, I could release up to 5 shares, which would get me 600 bucks right off the bat. 600 bucks doesn't really do me anything. I don't have enough money to buy a train. 375, 385, 395. I wouldn't have had enough if I swallowed, and by not swallowing, I increased my stock value, which is cool or something, I guess. So I don't think I'm going to be able to get 2 trains with this very quickly. I'm not. Is this one of the companies that I was counting on being able to buy a train? I don't think so. Might get 2 5Es. It might. Might just happen. I think what I want to do is just release enough that I can get the 6 train, which to me sounds like 2 of these again. Keeping a large percentage in there. Now 2 of these only gets me 240. But it gets me a pile of cash capable of getting a 6. And I think a 6, I think I can guarantee that I'm going to be able to get a 6 train. That I'm not going to be stumped for the 8. There are 3 of them. Yeah, 3 6s. Look at the D&H running across here, and I'm curious, and look, there are no big upgrades for the cities. They don't end up getting an extra dot in them. So unless something goes bankrupt, it's not going to clear a space for me, which to me means I'm probably not going to be running a lot of train. I'm lucky if I get to New York or to New Haven. Right now I'm running a 3 train. I will upgrade the Y space because that's going to get me the most money. But my eventual train is going to run something like 1, 2, 3, 4, which is not pleasant. I might be able to branch and get somewhere else, but I'm pretty locked in. I don't think I'm going to need that money. Yeah. So, I'd love to be able to get the 5 train. I don't have the cash for it. And I won't have it, I think, after a swallow. So, I end up paying out full for 13. That gets me an advance in the share price, cool beans, whatever. And then I release 2 shares again. Enough that'll give me a 6 train. I think I'm likely to get one. But a lot of people are thinking that. Some of these people are going to have to start thinking about an 8 train as they get further down the line. And that's going to be a big expense. I need to stop because I'm out of tea and my battery's running down, but that's not really an issue. Company up is the NH, which doesn't have enough money for a train. Has a 17 run, but if I pay out, I only make 68 bucks in my treasury because I've already released some shares. That's not quite enough. I'm like at 400 in my pocket. But if I pay half, I don't go back a space. I get some cash in pocket, and I get enough money to buy myself a 5 train, which sounds pretty good to me. I'm going to end up with a pair of 5s. Then I can juggle and arrange to get the 2 5s on one company and a 6 on another company, I think. Not positive, but we're assuming that. But right now, a 4 and a 5 actually runs probably pretty well on each company. So yeah, that looks pretty good. I have enough cash on the NYC to buy, and I don't think there's anybody between me and it that has enough. So we're going to be grabbing 2 of those 5s. But that does leave 1 left, which it looks like goes to Central Vermont probably, which is a good deal for them. Room to release a couple more shares for a couple $100, but that couple $100 doesn't look like it's going to do anything for me. I have a dot left. I don't think I terribly need it. I've got the important one. Sure, if this was set up well, I could maybe, I can go there, get that dot, and eventually the track will be hooked up. Is it worth it? Yeah, it's probably worth it. Let's release 1 more for another $100 on top of that. That'll pay for my dot, which I have to buy before I make my run. To the Boston and Albany's track lay, I figure this is probably my best. This is my best increase in income, is to put that down, because I'm running 2 trains. Boston, well, I don't know. Boston gains $20. This will gain me $20. I'd have to play this piece, which is has a blank side to it. Nobody's picked up one of these browns before, but there's a limited number of these with only 1 hex side. There's only 3 of them that have a blank hex side, which are what are needed in certain locations. They're not reserved for anything though. So like Campbell Hall would need that. This would need that. There's no reservation for those, so it's possible somebody could kind of eat up those. It's usually not necessary to have all all 6 coming out. Sometimes it's very helpful, but it's usually not necessary for a corporation or for train runs. And especially the way that the permanent trains work in this, it is absolutely unnecessary. They're going to run a single run. It's whether it's doubled or not, you know. So that's where we're going with that. I get as much money off Boston. There are arguments for putting a dot down. Certainly this one looks appealing, but I may be short on money, and getting the train is more important. There's enough riches right in my little packet. If I get a 5E, then I'm in good shape. So I'm going to see. I don't think a swallow's not going to get me enough money, which means I probably just pay out. There's people tagging along on this shit for some reason. I'm worried I may not have double advanced last time. I've got this mark. This was sitting there already. I'm making a 25 run. That's a lot of money. Still not enough. Which means I think I do want to buy that dot. And I'll pay out full because I'm getting $100 in here. I'm getting a good proportion of the money there, and that'll send me up 2 spaces, which doesn't really do anything except increase my stock value, but that's good. Pretty sure I screwed up, and this guy should actually be at the 145 space. He would have been at the 120, which meant he goes before the NYNH, but it doesn't have any impact on play. So I'm going to just boost his stock value for everyone for whatever that's worth. And then I release 4 shares. That gets me up to 570 something. A half swallow next time will get me enough money to buy this. It's not optimal, but it also puts me within striking range of the 6E for a full swallow or whatever. My run's big enough. Maybe I should have swallowed this time. I don't know. But I always like to do the swallow the turn I'm going to buy the damn train, not the turn after. But it might screw me over if the 6 comes out early. I don't think it will. Part of that has to do with, look how high I boosted my stock value, right? Well, now wait a minute. I'm seeing 3 trains falling. All before me. Fuck. I'm gonna get screwed if I pay out. Is a half swallow enough? I need a 6 train. I don't know. I'm gonna have to do the calculations, I guess. Need a half swallow is enough. I got $172 from the run by doing that. That means everybody's gonna make 13 a share, and 13 is enough to push me 1 forward. I'm keeping the 25 there because that's what the actual run is. I took the money away from everybody. I have to re-hand out the new money. And maybe it would have been better to let my miners die. I'm looking at the Canadian National here, running a big old 3 train coming out of here. Oh. Does not look appealing. So right now that'll run at 70, 100. It looks like the best I can do is 110. Plus maybe 10 more, so 120. I gotta buy a train. The 6s are gonna come out. Now, I do have a release of $500. That helps. That definitely helps. The 120, I'm getting 80% of it in here, so I might as well pay out. So, yeah. Payout and releasing 40% of the company shares into the pool, getting me another $400. I have enough for a train. I actually, shit, I screwed up. I actually have enough for a dot too, which I was gonna buy to put here, but I don't know if it's that important there. The WNR would be interested in that dot, but I don't know who else would. And I'm more interested in a dot that gets me maybe New Haven than I am getting into the area here. Burlington's worthwhile, but these are more valuable, so I'm looking more at crossing in that direction. I put a 6-spoker in. Thought about being Dicky and trying to take one of the things away, but there are like 3 cities that need the blank face tiles that are still left, that aren't wise. And that's this, this, and this. And 2 of those 3 are in my general region. I think it would be risky for me to eat up a tile that maybe I end up needing or wanting. So screw it, I'll put the 6-spoker in. But some players are going to be nastier and eat those up if they have no interest in putting one. So like here, we may well see one of those blank face tiles. Although, the fact that they already pulled, you know, these are the clear spaces that are left. So maybe it's worth putting a 6-spoker in there. I don't know. That's going to bring us down to the next company, the Providence and Worcester. And as we can see, it was possible for this guy to turn himself around. He's now in position to buy a train. How many 6s we got? We got like 3. So there's like 5 trains going to be bought. Let's look. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 already ahead of me. I'm worried the Providence and Worcester, another one of these late starters, is going to have to buy itself an 8 train. Just by the ordering. Unless I could engineer something with the Central Vermont. I don't have $1,000 there. If I had released more, maybe. So yeah, that's kind of scary. This is the company that is in the worst position train-wise. And I can't fiddle around with stock prices or anything. This game doesn't really allow you to do much of that. I mean, I could drop my own. That doesn't really help. What you want to do is be going earlier. Oh, boy. Don't know how he's going to make the money up. Could have swallowed, but I had 80% of the company in the treasury, so I paid out at 13 a share. Moves it forward a little bit, makes me a little bit of money in my pocket, which might be important. I have 600 in here. If it crashes, I have enough resources to cover it, so I won't just be ending up in last place with a 0 valuation at the end of the game. But I might well be taking a hit because I only have about 600 and something in here. Enough to buy the 6 train. That 8 train. Hey, in 1830, when you float a new corporation, you can't buy a diesel out of pocket either. However, like out of the initial company treasury, because you're limited to $1,000, because the highest par is 100. But the neat thing is, first of all, if I get really lucky timing wise, but I don't think I will, I can throw more money in by buying one of these shares. But the other, of course I have to pay the higher value, but because the IPOs aren't really IPOs. Like from the investor's point of view, there's no arbitrage bonus. From the company's point of view, there's no advantage to getting your stock to go up. The other side of things is that in 1830, quite often it's not a bad thing to pay $100 out of pocket for a diesel. So maybe that big 8E is going to be useful. I look like I have a pretty limited run though. Like I'm in danger of being cut in a way that most of the companies don't look like they're in as much danger. We'll see. We'll see. I do have my dots left. Somebody had mentioned, I never remember names, but somebody had mentioned on my discussion about, hey, I'm really unhappy about the railroad names. And that this game was a lot like 1861. Now, I really liked 1861. I feel like 1861, I think you could float companies through different means. Maybe I'll go look that up. Like, you didn't have to merge or create in order to float a company. I will look that up, but he made the point of, look, maybe it's just that, you're more used to the locations here, and I'm real used to some of these locations. I lived a fair amount of my early life on this map, or very close to it, maybe a little off here for a large part of it. And then another big chunk of my life, not all that far. Yeah, Syracuse is about halfway to Buffalo, but anyway. But anyway, and my first girlfriend lived near Syracuse, so there was that too. I spent, a fair amount of time there for a while. The real problem isn't so much being aware of the areas as being aware of the actual railroads that are involved here. Now, I could piece together things and make things work over on the 1861 map. Was it 61 or was it 60? Now I'm confused. It has to be 61. Fuck. I can't find anything. I know I have it. There it is. '60 is white, yeah. So yeah, 61, I know had mergers, but I don't think it was the only way you started companies. The fact that this is the only way you start companies is really, really weird and different. But let me make sure that I'm right about that. But yeah, in that, there were city lines that connected cities and whatnot. I don't know how historical those railways were. I don't feel like Russian railroading was the same kind of fragmented, very capitalist type situation that it was in the US or in Britain or whatever, where tons of little companies started and then ended up being bought out or merged or whatever, all kind of options there. The game that actually I think reflects that the best is the 1841 out of what I played. 1883, though, might be a reworking of that concept. I remember it's an incredibly complicated one, just like 41 is, but and set in the same area, I think. But sort of, I could level the argument against 61 that it's too capitalistic. And I'm not saying, oh, Russia was communist back then. No, what I'm saying is it was controlled. There were monopolies controlled. The crown, the czar ended up handing out, you didn't just finance a railway and get it working. And again, it's sort of the, hey, do you like the gameplay here, or do you like the historical aspects? And for me, it's always been sort of a mix. I feel like 18XX has always been a compromise of some of the realism situations for gameplay purposes, but also it was the real circumstances that drove at least the core idea of most of the games, and I don't feel like that's the case in this one at all. Like, I don't feel like the economic situation in this is any different from 30. There's reasons to use this map to do something, more like 1817 or whatever. But how many games do you need that have the same mechanisms? And it's definitely weird. I mean, I definitely do not buy multiple games that have the same mechanisms in general. Now, you could argue I really liked 61, and I'm really kind of enjoying this in its own way as well. So it's like, if they are that close, that explains something. Okay. So starting a public company in that, to start a public company, a player buys the director's certificate from the public company initial offer and sets its initial price by placing its, it has a normal purchasing mechanism. It also has the miners. I seem to remember I thought it had mergers or something. It has the Russian State Rail. Here we go. At the end of each operating round, there's a merger round, which is similar to this. So you can convert or merge into a public company. But like 2038, or I don't know what else is in my mind here. Like 2038, you can float public corporations on their own, or you can create them out of a miner. So there's that. Now 2038, you can use any miner, I think, to make any public corporation, but certain public corporations, kind of like 1835, turn into certain other, So 1835, you're forced, the miners just turn into the Prussian. In 2038, the miners end up able to form into any corporation you like, but there tends to be certain corporations that they want to be, and also there are certain corporations that just sort of automatically start early. There's one that must start early. I don't remember what it's called, but it's like, I don't know. It starts with the probe and whatnot. It feels almost like a government company to begin with. But then there's also the RU. And they have to be started in order, but you might not want to convert your miner into a public corporation. Like, they come out in packets like 1835 does, and you may not want to convert your miner into a public corporation because of where the center of that public corporation is fixed. This one, it does allow you to create any railway you want. You can buy any railway you want wherever you want as well. One of the recent, what is it, the Midlands one or whatever? I don't remember which one that is. Is that 1824? No, that's the Austrian. It's another GMT one. 1862. The Eastern Counties, yeah. I think this is the one. Has a lot of that sort of, the railways aren't fixed either. I don't mind if the railways aren't fixed. It's kind of difficult sometimes to align them and everything. The thing that I mind is that the Canadian National Railway, I think this is what I hate the most. The Canadian National Railway is a regular privately held corporation funded by railways in New England, basically. I just think this should not exist, even though it definitely, moved its tendrils into here early. I think something else could have been put in the place of it. I'm trying to think what. Like, they're digging pretty deep on railways as it is, in terms of the names and whatnot. Would I have been happier with the Canadian Pacific? A little bit, a little bit. And it was probably no. The Canadian Pacific survived the big collision into the National Railway. It's the only one that did. I don't know. Anyway, weird thoughts that take me off on a tangent as I go to the last corporation of this operating round, which is the NYC, who's all set up to buy himself a train. And, he can only buy one. But, nice situation. I could buy this one. So if I can come up with enough cash to get the NYNH a 6 train, that would be the optimal situation to get myself 3 permanent trains. The game's lack of straight cities. What do I want to do? I want to go straight across and right into there. Double track lay, could hook up, get it to New York all at once. Can't do it. Can't do it. My run has been cut by tokens, which I already paid the money for this track, but I'm not guaranteeing that I want to play it. Because I can always lay it later instead. So a run down this way, 1, 2, 3, 4, doesn't get me shit, right? I don't make it to New York. There's no chance of it getting anything. But the run over here isn't very good either. It's been dropped quite a bit. So I can go 1, 2, or 1, 2, 3, 4 is probably the best I can reasonably do. Do I want to upgrade anything? Not really, but I'm kind of worried about money. Because again, I'm thinking about, can I get away with, of course it's only 20 bucks. Yeah, it's only 20 bucks. And actually I can do 1, 2, 3, 4 for that 20 bucks. And then I can work from there. It's not optimal, but wow, but I just set things up for the D&H's dot, haven't I? Maybe I need this. I don't need this dot. It's this one I need. I don't really want to spend a lot of money, but if I end up calculating out that I have an extra 40 bucks that I know I don't need, I'll be buying that dot. Post when I actually should be making the decision. This is one of the problems I have with 18XX is when I'm playing at solitaire, I often withhold a decision till when I didn't have to make it. But the reason for that is it speeds up my processing time, right? If I don't decide to buy that, basically what I have to do is play out in my entire turn in my head and fake the whole thing, which is going to take me more time and maybe writing on paper and all kind of stuff than just playing it out and then saying, you know what, I had 40 bucks left. I had 40 bucks that I could do. I want to play this dot. And I feel like asking to be allowed to do that kind of thing is, I don't know, a little unfair. But it's but it ends up meaning that I suffer from a lot more effort in making my turns work, and also I'm going to eat up a lot of everybody's time, and I think it's just kind of problematic. It's you should be able, one of the etiquette things is that I think you should be able to do is say, look, I may be buying this dot, I may not. I'm going to have to figure my entire turn out. If I play the turn out, will you let me withdraw it or whatever? or make the decision at that point instead of now. Because if I got to make the decision now, I have to play my entire turn out without moving any pieces or anything. And that's going to take about 3 to 4 times as much effort as actually doing the turn. And then if you include that I have to rerun the turn afterwards. That doesn't gain me anything. I'm still going 1, 2, 3, 4. So I definitely don't want to do that. Which puts me back in the position of, I don't know if I want to lay this. I took my money back, I built that instead. That gets me to a 14 run. Now, I do not have a huge amount in here. If I swallowed $140, I would have $140 over my train. And released these. Can't release those. Don't want to swallow. Do not want to swallow. And since I have enough for the train, I think I just pay out my 14 a share and take as much as I can. I think. See, the thing is, 50% of it's over there where it's doing me no good at all. But that's life in 18XX. I think I'm going to have real trouble. But these two companies are going to be screaming powerful for a while. Yeah, since I can't release those 3 extra shares, I need to pay out, get more money into my hand so that I can buy them out of there. The end of the operating round would go to the merger round, but there's no possibility of any mergers anymore. There's no more corporations left. So that puts us to operating round 2. This is where I said I was going to stop. I don't want to stop. It's too interesting right now, and tomorrow's Friday. Can't guarantee anything. Unfortunately, that does mean that I end up not getting a nap before raid. I don't know. This is the thing with 18XX that almost no other game does this to me, right? Almost no other game do I play a point and say, I don't want to take a break. I need to keep playing. I really desire to keep playing. It has an addiction factor on me that is almost similar to when I'm playing computer games and whatnot. And in fact, yeah. So other Euros usually don't do it. I don't know how I can explain this, but I go up and I play half a turn or whatever of Summer Storm, and I'm fatigued and I want to be done. I play XX and I just want to play more and more and more, right? It's really, really very engrossing in that sort of way. Because it's all decisions as opposed to I'm not rolling dice. I'm not doing a lot of stuff that is sort of mechanical in nature. But there are other games that are equally decision based. Almost none of them affect me in the same way, and those that do are very similar in a lot of ways. Something like maybe the Winsome stuff, Chicago Express, things like that. Not just train games though, but I can't think of something that's not. But just this sort of I must keep playing feeling. It's really hard to break away. There are other games that I can take a break from and I want to play very badly, but I want to take breaks. It's almost like in 18XX, I don't want to take breaks. The heart of it is not just the luckless decision making. Familiarity with the system is definitely a part of it. That comes big. Like, if I was making this many decisions of this weight in a euro or something, I would have a hell of a lot of trouble with it. Um, but also the emergent chaos that comes from those decisions. There just always feels like stuff just happens, and it's as if it was happening randomly, but because of the interactions of the different players, it's like so hard to predict what is exactly going to happen. Now, you reduce the number of players, and I contend that like it becomes way too easy to start predicting things. In fact, I don't remember which one I was playing. It might have been 46 because that's relatively easy and handles three players. It's supposed to handle three players relatively well, but I was playing it again with a couple of people who weren't really familiar with it. I wasn't either, but I was able to again kind of just sit back and say, okay, so you're going to do one of these two things. You do this one, I do that. You do this, the other one, I do this other thing, and I absolutely could tell what my plan was. And in a way, that gets rid of the chaos, right? It makes it too much a thinky game for my taste, where you have too much control and it becomes much more like a chess type situation. And I don't mind it that much because I'm relatively, when I'm used to XX, I'm relatively good at being able to do this kind of decision make, this kind of projection. Anyway, screw it, man. Let's just play. On to the minors. Hudson upgrades this, makes $70 for each for $140 run, and its run is in the range of the public corporations, which usually doesn't happen at this stage in the game, right? Miners usually start tailing off, but I take a look at the WNR here, and he's getting tokened out and tracked out in ways that's gonna make it tough. I think my best move is to upgrade Boston. But the thing is, I'm dotted out here. Here, it's hard to move, right? I can run a 3 train up there and get an extra one. Um, do I get anything extra by grabbing Boston? Not really. I just move it up to a 70. That's a $20 increase. That's probably better than I can do anywhere else. Putting this in place allows me to start shifting and hitting a fourth city, though, which is of value. And I'm probably going to get locked out of this anyway. So maybe taking a little less money is worth it. Now it's time for the train rush to get real. We're on the big boy. The first one is the Central Vermont. I'm counting on getting 2 6 trains on one of my companies. So after my run, I spend my 500 and I buy the 5E, the last 5, which is not a bad thing to own. And now, if I had enough cash, I could buy the 6. I can come real close by selling 3 remaining shares of Central Vermont, which I'm going to do. That's going to get me $360 because that's my par, which puts me to 585, 595. I come within $5, but I wouldn't be able to buy the train this turn anyway. The point is, my next run, because I have shares still in here, unless people buy them out during the stock round, I'm going to be able to get an. And if people do, I do a half swallow, right? Um, this was a 16 a share run. Pretty small little thing. Just. I'm going to have enough money to buy the 6E. And the important thing about that is this guy's got to buy a 6. He is, well, maybe he gets an 8. Oops. In which case Central Vermont, I guess, runs a 5 and a 6, I can do so. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That would be one hellaciously valuable run. Also, it's not at all points of 18XX that I'm unwilling to break. It's right now. It's during the train rush. As that falls out, that's when it's hard. Early on, it's kind of slow. Not much is happening. It's exciting because all the openings are there. It's definitely interesting stuff, but it's not like this compelling chaos just descending all at once. And then, once the train rush is over, all 18XX games that are that don't end too soon, like, it's weird because the tail end after the train rush is kind of painfully slow, and you feel like you're sitting around. There's these annoying, painful run calculations that take a lot of time, but it's mainly mechanical. There's not a lot of interest going on. There's not much exciting that's going to change in the game. Sometimes somebody can do something pretty exciting in the more cutthroat games, but in the more stable games, it's really hard for anything too exciting to happen. And these should not be IPOs. I don't know if the share redemption is of much value, but that long, slow period that's kind of painful, and I don't mind breaking during it, if it's not there, it ends up that the game cuts too short and you don't really get the rewards for setting up properly. I think one of the better answers, I think it was 62 there, had sort of a, yeah, you're not allowed to do much in those. You calculate your runs and you make them X number of times. You're not allowed to fiddle with stocks and shit like that. So it kind of takes away whatever was exciting about it, but it makes the runs really, really easy to calculate. Not a lot of tricky shit is going on. People aren't shifting trains or something. So one of them had some kind of lock in place that prevented that endgame period from bogging down too much, and it allowed it to just be a spreadsheet exercise, which speeds up play a lot, and it still rewards you for the big decisions. It does take away some options, but I think it was a good compromise between them. I think it was 62 that did it, but I can't be sure. So now we're on the Boston and Maine, and it's their turn to buy the first 6, and that's going to cause the last rusting event. I want to keep the Hudson alive. That's one of my goals. I set up my track. I'm going to have... Oops, no. I'm going to have a 36 run with that 5E and 3. The 3 runs through here. The 5E runs 1, 2, 3, 4, back up there, 5. That's pretty scary. I can't do that. I'm using this track twice. It isn't a 36 run. I needed to upgrade Boston. I want to run this to one degree or another. I may be losing 3 off that. I think that's what I lose. Yeah. So I'll be running, say, this, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is gonna be $30 less. 33 run. Okay. A 33 run, if I pay out, will move me forward twice. If I pay out half, it moves me forward once. No matter what, a train is going over to the Hudson. The real question is, how easy is it going to be for me to get $800 in the company treasury? I can't do it by selling those. And what if I swallow the whole amount? So if I swallow the whole amount, I get 330 in here. And I have 2 of these. That's another 240. That puts me to 570. 6, 7 something. I come real close to being able to buy an 8 train. And what that means is the Hudson's going to be getting 50 and 50. I'm going to be able to shift the money. I mean, the money's all going to be in one place. I'm going to be able to buy, say, the 5 train back and be running a 5E on the Boston and Maine and an 8E. Well, running the 5E doubled on the Boston and Maine, which looks pretty sweet to tell you the truth. Right now it's 1, 2. I don't know if I need to do that. 1, 2, 3. Some kind of cut through that could get me into New Haven would be really valuable to me. But we'll see. So I think I actually want a full swallow. That 330 bucks. I'm not costing myself all that much, and a lot of other people are riding along with me. To set myself up to not only keep the Hudson alive, but to make the B&M more powerful. Of course, what that means is I'm not going to have as much cash as other players are to buy up remaining B&M shares. 6s kill all the 3s. We have a bunch of companies in trouble at this point. They have money on them. They're not devastated. Kills the 3 on the B&M. Let's take a look at what 6s don't create grays. It's the 8s. Yeah, and now we're at a 2 train limit, which is why 3-5 trains is not likely to happen. And I'm not going to have bought the token. That's where I want it, if I'm going to want it, probably. Or maybe here. I don't know. This doesn't look valuable to me. But I have a hard time. I have a hard time getting around. Like, I might have a lot of train that can't get anywhere if I'm not careful. But that's life. And that's going to put it over on the D&H, which is going to be unable to make a run. Now, the D&H paid a couple of bucks to hook that up. That gets them their eventual 6 run, I guess. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Could end up shifting somehow. I'm not going to be able to use New York City. But New Haven is as good, isn't it? Not quite. Boston's as good. I might be able to shift down in this direction. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's not good yet. Just wait for it. You know, this could hook up, whatever. There's some way that I could get into New York. Remember, I can skip the Doinkers with the E train. I have $600 almost exactly. 80 bucks for the dot, not worth it. And we buy ourselves the train. He has enough money to buy that last 6 train. Not enough to save the WNR. Life sucks. My run dropped from the 25 range to the 20 range. 200 bucks isn't going to make a damn bit of difference. Not at this point. The 8s are going to fall. The train's going to be gone. I'm not going to have the cash on hand to do anything. I don't have any treasury to throw or whatever. So I might as well pay out. These were my track lays. Allowed me to make a little bit more money by going. I don't know what I want to have. I don't really feel like Boston's worth it. I feel like this may be my dot that I want. No new dots open up. I've mentioned that before. I'm used to like the gray track and whatever, adding maybe another space in some of these cities. Doesn't happen in this game. Which is kind of so. There's kind of a weird thing because that's a chaos factor, right? When you get it, like, can you manipulate your turn? But because this game doesn't allow a lot of manipulation, it would be more of a randomness factor, right? Like, you can do some manipulation, but it's hard. It involves like swallowing or something stupid like that that really impacts your cash. Can but often there's a, hey, there's a space that's going to open up when somebody buys this train, so I'm going to try to set myself up to go right after that person so that I can buy the dot there and stuff like that. I also have no income in the Boston and Albany. The only way I have income is by swallowing. So, and I don't have 80 bucks. I'm $9 short. Then Minnehaha goes next. Then the Canadian National, which needs a train, has the money for a 6 train. Doesn't have enough for an 8, but he's going to have to buy something. So unless he shifts, yeah, and releasing shares, I can't release shares then buy this train any more than I can release shares then buy this train. Not that there's any space for releasing anyway. Swallow or something isn't going to help because I don't have a train on the company. It's already wiped out. So he's going to have to pay out of pocket for that train. It's going to be about 150 bucks, which is more than he has, which means some shares are going to fall or something. You have to check. Are there too many B&Ms in there? Because, yeah, D&H can sell. Yeah, he's got plenty of money to cover it, but it hurts his position by far. So what that means is the NYNH is going to get one monster run. Well, I don't know because its track isn't that great, but it's got the possibility for one big run, and then the fours are going to die. So the NYC is not going to get a big run. So I can't count on any money from that. NYNH could release a couple more shares. Who the hell is holding that shit? I got a share missing. Don't I? 3, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's a share not accounted for. I gotta find it. It was in the bank pool. So yeah, I could release one more share. That's gonna get me like $100, which is not really sufficient to do anything with. So my swallow, I don't think my swallow is going to be huge if I make it. What it would have to be is like $600. I don't think anything's making that kind of run. A situation where I could do all kinds of route optimizations. When you got a couple of trains, that can happen. Instead, what I'm looking at is, look, I bet you the best thing for me to do is upgrade this. Because I'm going to hit it twice this time. Bet you it's not, because the 8 trains aren't out. Okay, well, I'm in hell then. Because what I'm looking at is, all right, I want to run the 4 train where it won't hit any doinks. Well, that's like 1, 2, 3, I guess. Okay, I can hit a 4th here, that's fine. And that means then the 5E could run 1, 2, but now I want to go here, 3, 4. Okay, where do I go from there, right? So if I'm doing a 4 here and a 1, 2, 3, four, 5, I guess. 1, 2, 3. I guess. Eventually it would be improved, but eventually I'm not going to have the 4 and the 5E. I'm going to just be figuring out how to make that 5E do the best. What does that mean I improve? Well, see, that's what's complicated, because if instead of here I get the Horns of Happiness, I can hit Boston. And we want to hit Boston. Boston's definitely worth hitting. Dang, that got me up to a 4. Oh, my battery's charger's not working. That got me up to a 46 run, which feels like so strong that, you know, I should be able to do something. I've got one more share in here. I could bring myself up to 600 and something. When I add the NYC in, it does not have a share, but it has money that's ending up in here. A Swallow, I think, can get me an 8E. Do I want an 8E? Well, yeah, because then I get a double 5E over on one of the companies and a big run on the other. So I think we swallow. Doing that and releasing another share, that gets us to our 50%. New York Central's already completely in there. And that puts us on the Canadian National, which it's such a shame the New York Central is not getting a big run. But they do have 30% in there. I have over 600 bucks here. 6.5. And I have a couple of shares. I have shares of this. And I'm going to get that extra train. But the game might not be long enough for it to matter. But remember, individual player bankruptcy doesn't end this one. And there's a fair amount of bank there. And when the 4s go away, nobody's going to be making huge runs anymore. Because one of these trains is going over to the Hudson. The poor, poor CNR. Oh man, is it in trouble. Is it in trouble? Not just money-wise, but it's going to have a fucking 8 train. It has no dots on the board. It's not in particularly good places. Now, the WNR is going to disappear. That'll help somewhat, I guess. Because then I'll be running 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, I can hit doinkers if I want to. The other idea is to try to break out this way. There's nothing there. Maybe if I can get out to the Boston area, that might be worth it. Put in something to start working my way there. I'm not running track anyway, or not running a train anyway, so I'm not going to, get a price bonus off my track. We'll do what we can. Do I want a dot? Yeah, where? This one might be of value, but I don't know if it's terribly important. I can always go up this way. This one looks valuable, but will that cut the D&H into hell? The D&H doesn't have money for a dot on its next turn, and I don't know where it's going. It's got a 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I was going to skip this, I guess. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the D&H really wants that dot as well. They won't have money for it on their next turn. Because, again, the dots happen before the runs and before you can release shares. Fucking battery thing. I mean, I'm paying out of pocket. That's stupid. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think I'm in a lot of trouble, and leaving this open is more likely to make me not be in trouble. So, we didn't choose the track yet. Because this is a game where stock values can stay the same, you got to be kind of careful. I just noticed the CNR fell back here. We got 2 companies in here, but this guy was there first. So he's actually on the bottom of the or on the top of the stack. If he stays even for some reason, he will actually remain on top of that stack. But if he does something else, he goes wherever he goes. It's like I have to raise $100 basically. I shifted some money around. I've got $700 in here. I don't have enough to make the difference here. The bank treasury, the company treasury has to be empty at the end of this. I could, of course, have bought a dot, but we decided against that for various reasons. And we'll make money. So it's not that big a deal. My choices then are a D&H for 110 or a B&M for 120. I think I will sell the D&H. Both of them have room to be sold, and that will get me 10 more bucks here, an 8 train, and a high misery index. Kills the 4 trains, and there aren't a lot of them. There are only 4 of them. There's as many 5s. Now, 4 trains is, I think, what you have in 1830, but you only have 3 5s and 2 6s. Here there's a little bit more friendliness to having to buy a big train. The Canadian National really does not want that 80. They really wanted something smaller, but taking a turn to swap probably isn't worth it either. So yeah. Where does that put me? That puts me on, we're running down to the end here. That puts me on the Providence and Worcester, which looks like it has, and no, I don't want to release shares. I can't. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Looks like they also have to buy themselves a train, but they are in an interesting position because Central Vermont has a train and a pile of money. We're going to need to swap trains at some point. And I don't know, I have to decide who wants the 8, among other things. This looks like a really shitty run, but there's actually a fair amount of openness there. Whereas the CV has a lot of good dots, so them having the 8 train might be worth it. And shift some cash there. I was hoping to get 3 trains, but that doesn't look like it's going to happen. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And we're all sold out there. It might, like, the CV might collect enough off of its 3 shares, but people will buy them up. Going to be really sloppy here. Sloppy. This company isn't going to make a run, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy a dot. Now, unfortunately, I don't have enough money, quite, to buy a dot right away, right from here without breaking 100. So I'm going to do something horrible, I think, which is borrow money from the Central Vermont. You wouldn't do this in an opposed game, but I'm going to borrow money out of the Central Vermont because I know I'm buying that train. And I know it's going to all end up in the same place, and I'm trying to making change easier. Now, of course, me explaining this has taken more time than actually doing, all the mechanical actions that I would do in a real game. But I just thought it was interesting to point out that kind of shortcut that I feel like you can take when you're playing solo, but you probably shouldn't be doing shit where you're transferring money between companies illegally when you're playing opposed. Kind of funny with 18xx games. They end up adding some weird track. Let me see if I can find the things that are, not all that standard. It's got to be in here somewhere. I'm not seeing it now. I swear I did, man. These guys, with a wide curve in one direction and a sharp one in the other. But they never add the brown pieces that, I'm constantly trying to find. I think the thing is that they don't want to add more than 4 connections. Like, what I want here is something like a line going across that, because what I want to do is I want to skip this town, and I'm not seeing an easy way that I'm going to be able to do that. That's the kind of thing, or one with two bridges going across. It's just shit like that I always want. And I don't have games that I know of that have like the track that I want to be there, right? I want a lot more flexibility with my ability to build track than 18xx sort of has built into it. After a bit of work, I managed to decide I was going to build this, put the dot there. Neither of these dots is all that important to me. As long as both of them don't fall, I'm okay. Because I can either zing up or zing down. If they both go, well, then I got some problems. But my 5 train that I just purchased for a shit ton of money, although I kept $100 for another dot, I don't want to do that. Fuck that. I got shares of this. Nobody's going to buy this shit. Okay. The extra $100 makes it quicker for me to get the second 8E on the central Vermont. But it means the CV is going to end up not paying out again. That's okay. That's okay. And let's see. That means we're down to this is confusing. I wish I had known and put them on the white ones instead of the color that they appeared to be. Transferring them is not a thing, though. That leaves me with the one last company, which is the NYC, which does not have enough money to buy a second train. I may end up buying the 5E's second train, the NYNH's second train, because they have a pile of money on them, and it looks like they're probably going to buy an 8 train as well. The NYC puts this in, so they're running a New York to Boston run. Not many companies are going to be able to do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sorry, 5, which nets them 27 a share. And I'll just pay out because we're going to just wait till the money accumulates before we do anything. We don't want to do anything exciting. That's a double payout, which is very cool. Getting me a little closer. We're actually going to have our 2 companies adjacent, I think, because it's going to be the last in the 120 and the first in the 100. We hit another merger round and a stock round. I'm not able to go on with the stock round at this point. These will flip over. One thing that it feels to me is that the capability, unless this is a very long game, which it's not supposed to be, the capability to redeem shares, buy them back from the pool, let them increase in cash, let you get more money back in here, and then re-release them. I don't know how much value it's going to have. Certainly it can have some. It's really a late game option once you've got your permanent trains and whatnot. And in 1870, the game which I'm familiar that has the share redemption as a big deal, that's got such a long tail end to it, a really obnoxious, hideous one. The share redemption actually does quite a bit in that game. But in this one, I'm not sure that it's going to do a hell of a lot. I think, clearly, look, these guys can redeem shares with that cash, and probably should have already done it in order to, you can do it early. I may have had to, I had to release a share. So I could not have redeemed shares. Why do I have so much cash? I don't know. But it's kind of interesting because I can have both IPO and redeemed shares in my pool at the same time. The IPO ones will only get me $100 when I sell them, however I sell them. So I kind of want to leave them, sitting in there, But redeemed shares, and I think there was some mention of this, but I couldn't find it. But the redeemed shares will be able to gain stock value. So by having both in there, I can actually do some cool stuff and then release the redeemed shares again. Of course, if any player buys anything, they're going to buy my IPO shares rather than the redeemed shares. Probably. They pay the same amount of money, and they may want to steal those redeemed shares before they increase in value. So yeah, there's a lot of flexibility there. All right. And I'm not quite ready to load this one up. I want to go through the stock round, certainly, but I also think I want to go through more operating round. I don't know. All the effects of the train purchases have not yet fallen out. Like, it feels to me like we have another big purchase there. These longer term purchases, they might not happen within a reasonable span, but the disposition of the miners and how they end up with their trains and whatnot. So I don't want to load this up quite yet, even though it means it's going to be a longer video. I don't think anybody cares. Those people who are watching and do care about watching the video, I'm assuming you guys want to watch the whole thing or not. You know, like, you don't really care if it's broken into parts. So weird to be this late in a game and somebody just has 3 certificates, and yeah, they didn't go very badly. I mean, everybody's kind of at like 3 or 4 certificates. I mean, it feels like we're in the entering the end game. Anyway, here it is. I think it's still Thursday, but it's getting close to midnight. And I want to get the stock round and a couple more operating rounds underway. And then we'll get into whatever the long tail end is of this one. First thing you want to do with a player, even one with only 3 certificates, is to make a quick sanity check. A health check on my companies at this kind of point. And because, conceivably I could sell my Boston and Maine share, and I may want to do that anyway, and invest that money in one of these. But I've got a permanent train on both of these. They both seem perfectly fine. If they're what I want, if they're the best rail out there, great. But I don't think they're likely to be the best rail out there. However, there aren't a lot of clear beauties, right? So this over here has 2 trains. That sounds pretty sweet, but one of them is obviously going over to the miner, or it might. It might not. But if I hold my share, it's probably going. If enough of those external shares are held, it's almost certainly going to happen. Which means, yeah, this is not that fantastic a deal. What does look good is what had a very good run. Now, that was from 2 trains, but looks like it might have 2 trains at some point, which is the NYNH. I would kind of like to have a share of each of these for whichever one it falls on. I look at some of the others. Well, Central Vermont is not going to get a run, even though it's got shitloads of money. And nothing else looks terribly attractive. So I think I want to sell a Boston and Maine. I'm not the president, so that doesn't do anything to it. That'll be $120. And now I'm allowed to buy, let's get an NYNH out of there. And the question, of course, is which do I want to do? I'm going to have to pay $100, which is indeed the par value anyway. I can either buy from here or I can buy from the company treasury. Not sure I see a reason. So here's the thing. I can ask him how much money he has. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The 2 shares that are in there are going to give him $200. Or the runs will. How quickly do I want him to get to the point where he buys that second train? Seems like a good idea if I'm doing this. So I'm going to sell this for $120 and pay $100 for this. And that means I get 20 bucks. And the NYNH gets 100 bucks. And we're going to do the same kind of thing with others. For example, this guy. Does he want? Well, this is just going to die. It puts the money back in the bank. He's pretty sure of that. And the Boston and Albany looks safe. So, again, succeeds in the health check. We're going to do this with each player, but I don't think anybody's in an irretrievable position. I think everybody has made it through one way or another, if you count discarding, one of your minors, which I think is a pretty common occurrence in the game. The fact that we didn't buy 2 of the minors, I think, is also probably pretty common. I doubt that they usually all float. That feels like it would run the trains way too quick. But they might if people don't build the majors early, if they decide that making the money off the minors is worth more. Problem this guy's got, he had a rockin' good company with a couple of trains at that mid-level game, but it's not flowing into the later game. Now he has a lot of cash on hand, as does this guy. Not only did he have a good company, he had a minor, which also, for a long time, which also produced extra money. So, I don't know, that extra money might have been worth losing the share, essentially, at this point. I see no reason to get rid of the B&M. The only reason to do it is if I'm afraid that's going to get to 50%. And, hey, if the NYNH looks so good, I might as well buy one as well. Go to the first stock round where any decisions are being made, really, like anything complex. So I'm stepping in a lot. I don't know why. I mean, you guys have seen XX stock rounds before, I'm assuming. Like if you're watching this XX of mine, you have probably watched others, even if you don't play the game. But that gets me to this third player here. NYNH is sold out. It's got the 800 bucks on board. Great. I don't know where I want the train to end up. Right now I have 30% of the NYNH, but the NYC actually goes before the NYNH. Does that make a difference? It kind of does. So here's the thing. If I buy a train with the NYNH, and then the NYC buys that train, I lose a round with it. If the NYNH went before the NYC, then there would be no real reason not to shift a train. But there is a fair reason not to shift a train in this particular case, right? Yeah, because we're assuming the game is going, because the game doesn't break immediately due to like a player bankruptcy type situation. The only way the game breaks immediately like that is if everybody loses except one person. So yeah, that's not going to happen, which means the order is actually important. It's I think it's always important, but what I was trying to express, I don't even think is a valid point. But what I mean underneath it is that no matter what, since the NYNH goes after the NYC, they each get a turn. So the first turn will be with just one train for both of them, right? And then the NYNH has a train at the end of that because they have all the cash. And if the NYC buys it, that moves the train over and a run is lost with the double trains. So I probably want to buy NYNHs myself as well. But do I? Here's the why I might not. And I don't remember what my decision making was, but I think it was actually this, that I want the 8E on one company and the 5E on the other. And that makes the NYC more interesting. because to get two 5Es in one place means buying that. Plus it's cheaper, not that that really matters. I have $155, not much. There is some danger to not buying an NYNH, which is that if other people hold off, someone can steal it. And if I sell an NYC, someone could steal that. Not that it's terribly valuable, but it's going to be hard. Most people don't have a lot of money. How do I want to do this? It's a good question. Oh, gosh. I don't know what the answer is. I really don't know what the answer is. Like, I think I buy an NYC and I worry about it being stolen. And I think I buy it from the bank because that gives me more flexibility and that cash can accrue here. Not that there's any real reason to favor having IPO shares versus shares that are in the bank pool. The only thing is people can sell into the bank pool, but because there's no sold out or anything like that. Okay. Players have invested in the NYNH. And I hope I did it right that they're $100 each. I know I said something that may have been about the NYCs or something else. That I'd have to pay $120 for an NYC, but the company would only get $100 if I took from there. But anyway, I think I just shifted $100 bills, but I got kind of confused up here and tried paying $120 for an NYNH. Coming to this guy, he wanted to buy an NYNH, but before I make that purchase, and I've already spent the money, I may actually want to get rid of the Boston and Albany. Only one can be sold of that. This guy could have made the same decision, whatever. With only one able to be sold, that means that I might end up with a share that I don't particularly want. And also, it's at $145. $145 is, it's probably not going to make that big a run. It may gain more money per run for a little while. I'm not sure. We know that it was making a decent amount before. What would a 6 run with this be? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So let's take a look at this. 90, 160, 200, 240, 290. Yeah, it's going to make a pretty good run. I guess I'll just hold it because it does make more share value. You see the difference is 15 here where it's 10 for stuff back here. So it actually makes me more money. And here's the thing. My $45, 55, 65 is not going to get me another share. How do you reach your certificate limits in this game? Good God. Now, but that's going to slow down the bank breaking, to be honest, right? Stuff that's in the treasuries does get pulled out of the bank. So shares that are in the treasuries, but the shares, the limited number of shares in players' hands, the large number of them in the bank pool, that means not a lot of money gets paid out for these runs. Now, they're decent-sized runs, but they're not ridiculously big either. So this could have a long tail to it. Let's get back over here. This player, this guy doesn't have any money. He has what he wants. For this player, I'm not sure what the best company is. I could look around, you know. I rolled a die to see if he was going to be aware of what the NYC was likely to do, which makes the NYC really, really valuable. I got a no on that, which means then I start looking and say, where's the best sort of run likely to be? And these don't tell me anything because these are runs made off of maybe a couple of trains, right? So I kind of have to prefigure everybody's runs and make a judgment on that. But this is pretty good, right? What we saw here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hitting to here. That was 50, 90, 130, 200, 240. That's not bad. So I can't be too unhappy with it. Do I want to buy my own shares? There's no real reason to. And I have no way to get them into the company without swallowing. But yeah, I mean, I'm heavily invested in that. It's an okay company, but it may not be the best. It may have some opportunities opening up instead of hitting here where it's going to come down this way. Maybe. I don't have enough money for a dot though, so I can't really protect it. And other companies have shares. Now I might want to pick on a company with shares, like the B&M, by buying one of them out, but that gives it a pile of money that maybe it can do something with. At the very least, it can buy. Oh wait, there's only 80. I'm only $9 short. Great. I think I remember saying that before. And also, we're only on the browns here. We got the grays coming. So I'm kind of looking at shit and saying, what looks good? Well, the purple looks kind of good, but that's this. That's going to forego a run. Not a great idea. The NYC is playing in that area. It looks kind of attractive, honestly. So let's just make it easy and buy an NYC. And the hell with the fact that I didn't get this die roll. This is one where I have a choice of where I want to buy from. Again, do I want to put money in the NYC? I don't know. I don't really want him getting more dots. But this might be his most valuable dot, so if he plays there, then it would be kind of cool if he played a dot here. Either way, though, I have to pay $120. It's just if I pick from the company, $100 goes into the company. See, priority end up in the same old damn boring place. And the New York Centrals, he bought one. Basically, that's where the excess money went. Looking at it, yep, looks like a good idea. Sure, fine. Both of them taking from the bank pool instead of anywhere else. That ends the stock round. And we push into the operating round. There are still privates. And the first one has the opportunity to buy itself a train. And here's where it gets really interesting. So like the B&M, why is he holding a B&M? It's got 2 trains. I don't know, he probably should have gotten rid of it. Everybody probably should have gotten rid of it. But I did look and count, and it has sort of the same run as the B&A, so it's not a bad run. But there's the question of which of the 2 companies wants the 5, which one's the 6, because he has 50% of this. So if the 6 makes better money, like if the Hudson can use the 6 reasonably, he would rather have it there. And to make that decision, it's an E train, so I don't have to hit doinks. 1, 2, 3. Cut through here. 1, 2, 3, 4. No. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 gets me into New Hampshire. Conceivably, I could do 1. This is not bad. 2, 3, 3, 4, 5, 6 into New York. Now, not New Hampshire, New Haven. New Haven's definitely worth less than New York. So that seems like a pretty good goal. And what was This is the HR, which may or may not be able to control dots there, because like it may or may not be able to pass through the track that I'm talking about because it's got no dots. So yeah, I'll figure out my track lay and I will buy. I was looking at a 6 train for that. Right? Yeah, I can certainly use a 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. I spend, 100 and some odd money. I keep a $5 because there's really not a great reason for it, but conceivably there's no great reason for there being $5 there. $1 is fine. No bucks is fine. No bucks is fine. This is going to make money. Screw it. I'll throw everything in for that train. And that's quite a deal, but more importantly for the player, I'm going to be making better money off of this than off my 30% of this, and nobody's going to ride it. Now, this might get stuck in stock value a little earlier because of it, but it might also be able to, between the two of them, generate another train, which would be an interesting concept. The miners can last forever in this. That brings me to the WNR, which I believe just dies. Basically what happens is he can lay track. If he has anything for the Boston and Albany, which he wants to lay. And he has cash. So I could actually lay a couple of tracks down, which is very interesting. But let's take a look at the purchasing trains. A minor company is not required to own a train, but is liquidated at the end of the turn. See 11.9 minor company in liquidation. I could throw money in. Yeah, I'm not anywhere near it. It would be more money than I can possibly afford. Where was 11.9? Here. Minor companies that end their turn trainless are liquidated. You give the bank the company's treasury. The stock value is worth nothing. Flip the company's share price marker over, blocking the space. The company's station marker is removed from the map, and the home location is now available, and the charter is removed from the game. Just as if it had merged or something like that. Which means, yeah, I've got, a possibility to lay track in a couple of these locations. And let me think what might help the B&A. The Central Vermont, that's the big boy up here. And he's going to go back, but before he does so, he gets to lay track. And that track's kind of interesting for him because I got a shit ton of money. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I got $300 extra. I might, actually more than that, I might actually want to be parsimonious here because I might be able to get a second 8 train as long as my shares are in both of these. What can an 8 train do for me though? That's a really big question. I'm not sure I want to go back up to Burlington. I'm looking at things like this. 1, 2, 3, okay, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or there's other options. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 up to Portland, which is a high value location. I think my best initial money is the Portland run. I don't really want to compare the two particularly. But then there's sort of the whole, hey, what do I want to upgrade, whatever. So like New Hampshire, I get $20 on the upgrade. Getting this gives me a 60, but that's only a $20 upgrade for $20 for this. So maybe I don't want to do that because this might get closed off if I build there. So whereas it might not be of any importance to anyone otherwise. So I'm kind of looking at, if I'm running from New York, no gray track is on the board yet, but the 8 train has been bought, which means we're in the gray section. So if I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah, I think that's my best run. And I think the best thing I can do is upgrade one of the cities that gets me a +20. Now, Boston is worth a plus 30. So that's actually my best choice. But I don't get to make a run this turn. So it's not an interesting choice. Okay, so my choice should then be what preserves my run the best. And actually, perhaps the least likely place for the run to happen, to get starved, I might want this in case I get blocked out of here. I might want to just upgrade this for 10, let other people upgrade the big money stuff. I can always do one of them as well when I actually get a run. Could, of course, grab this for the province in Worcester. This is one of the problems. There's only one of those left because somebody ate one. So, since the province in Worcester goes so late, I'm going to do that. I'm going to build track for it. This is track that doesn't help me one bit for my company, but it helps the other company, and that's good enough for me. And I go back and I buy myself a train. So we discussed the B&A a little bit. It ended up at a 32 run. The B&M ended up with a 30 run, but it dotted this. A 30 run with a smaller train, by the way. But it dotted this, and that's going to cause some cuttage on other people and maintain some strength for itself. And this is kind of important because my other thing is the Hudson. Well, the Hudson has trouble getting across the board. There's a divide on the board here. There's a possibility something could be built through, but right now there's a major divide on the board, and the mountain range basically reflects that, with towns built up so that you really can't get through if you don't have one of the dots coming through through these two, really. It might be possible that Springfield, something interesting can happen coming through there. Might be. Is that a special town? I do not like the special towns, I've got to tell you that. Springfield is upgrades to a normal green city. Lowell upgrades to a normal green city. So, in a sense, both of the remaining special hexes are pretty reasonable. Yeah, I wanted to jump in there, and those high rates, given the low stock valuation, we're getting big stock payouts as well. Now that's not necessarily good because it makes it hard to invest, but and lots of money showing up in the B&M and the D&H as well. This battery's going to need to be replaced. And it got a nice 31 run off a simple 6E and not an optimized route. I'm running through some green stuff here. This can't be replaced, unfortunately, but I might be able to set things up in a way that I'm not hitting New Haven, I'm hitting New York by going up this way. I still will be hitting that, but as it is, I'm actually, what am I running? I'm running like, I don't remember what I'm running. Did I cheat? I bet I cheated. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No. So why? Oh, I need to upgrade this. No. Yeah, I don't need to upgrade that. I don't know why I upgraded that. I can squeeze more money out. Monies. Interesting. Yeah, which means, why did I think I needed this track? Let me see again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, I couldn't have even done the run the other way. I don't know. Which means that, and I could actually come up different ways, whatever, I don't know. I don't necessarily have to go through this city, is all I'm saying. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah. So I could get a $10 increase here by taking one of the limited number of Browns. I could get a higher increase of $20 by taking that. I'll take the higher value. I was confused. I did need this. I ran a different run than I thought I was. The run I made was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, going through New York instead of New Haven, which means New Haven didn't really matter. 31 was the best I could do. I might be able to improve it. Certainly I can improve that. But the real thing that I'd love to be able to do is to run New York to New Haven. But I can't really do that. Burlington's a 60, so it's not that much worse as an endpoint. It's just, yeah. So yeah, that made 31 a share. And that made a fair amount of cash in here because of all the certificates in there. To the extent that, you know what I could do? After I pay out, and the price is 145, I can redeem a share. Is this wise? I have a dot. Fuck me. I have a dot and I may need it. Let me hold the money. I can redeem later. This gives me enough cash that I can still play that dot if I really want to. Right now I don't really need it, and I don't think I'm going to use this. How important are these? You know, I don't think anybody else is competing for them. But if somebody does go into one of them, I want to be able to lock it out. NYC did not meet expectations for what people think the companies are going to be pulling in here. People bought shares of it thinking, hey, I'm all over rich stuff with a 5E, that's not too bad. Well, the actuality is the 6 trains are doing better. And maybe, you know, the Canadian National 8 would have been a good train. I don't know, he looks so hosed in so many ways. But we'll see what he can break out. Yeah, that's a pretty bad company, actually. Can buy one. Still allowed 2 trains. Make the D&H greater, and then, yeah, I don't have. Well, I could buy it for $1, or a couple of bucks, and then transfer $1 over, and just swap the trains. The D&H, can it use an 8 though? I doubt it. It's sort of locked into the same shit. I mean, I can use more than I have, but not by a lot. So I could add this town, I could add that town. I could also add doinkers. So, yeah. But what was we on? We was on the New York City, which did not, or New York Central, which did not impress me. It ran 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, getting 28. But I bought a dot here, which shuts down the Hudson. Not completely, but, you know, it's not sliding into the riches that it thought it was going to get. And now its 6 train is looking a lot more iffy. And that transfer, the choice to move the 6, really looking like a dumb move. 1, 2, 3, 4 is all I'm going to be able to run there. Until I get a bypass. If I do, you know. Yeah, this battery's dead too. They're not charging all the time. I don't know which thing it is, but because I've caught both my charging situations failing recently. I actually wanted to say something else, which is part of why I did turn the camera on to begin with the first time, which is that the NYC does not want to buy the 5E train right now. That would deprive the NYNH of a run, and I definitely don't want to do that, especially since these runs are causing double shifts in stock value in general. And fairly surprisingly, what did I run before? I ran the NYNH. It made 33, pretty good run, right? It's on good track with a nice 5 train. It's going to be much sweeter now that it has an 8 train. It's not going to run both of them. It's not going to run the double 5. It could just double its income right off the bat. It's going to do better than, or it's not going to do better than that with an 8 train, because the double 5 is basically a 10 running over some of the best track in the game. But the NYC is going to get that, and I'm going to get the sweet little 8 train there. And I have a more open route, so I should be able to get more money on the NYNH than I would with the NYC with the same train, I think. It's hard to tell because the NYC could come up this way. I would have to find a way out, though. But the CNR, actually did a fairly respectable 29 run, hitting a lot of doinkers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Only a 7 run out of its 8, but you can see I'm able to break out a little bit. I'm hoping to make it through either Springfield or maybe further north and be a threat, because I got money for dots coming in too with all those shares. So yeah, that leaves one more company left, which is the Providence and Worcester. Box in at a respectable 32 a share. There's not much room for improvement there. Can I build track for the Central Vermont? I don't know what the hell that thing's going to be doing. It ran its 8. I don't know what it was doing with it, but see, it probably ran this way. 1, 2, 3, but I can't loop back now. There's no way out. So New Haven is shut off from me, which sucks because that's... Actually, no, I don't do it that way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's probably as good as I can do. I could lay track to try to bone people. Who do I want to try to bone? By which, one of the things in XX is sometimes it's worth just building track that nobody would want to screw people over. Of course, one of my buddies pointed out to me when I got screwed over by my own bad track lays of that nature, you shouldn't do that because you might find that you need to use it someday. And it's true, but I don't see too much opportunity for dotting out the Central Vermont very heavily. I've got a lot of options. So I'm running here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I'm going 7, 8. But I have other options like 7, 8, 7, 8, 7, 8, depending on... So basically all 3 of these dots would have to go for me to be put in a bad position. So I think it's worth it for me there. Now what about the Providence and Worcester? What is that using? Because it doesn't want to get boned either. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But it has its own other options. 4, 5, 4, 5 that it can't be screwed out of no matter what, but I'm better off hitting Boston in that case, in which case I'd be hitting a doinker or something, which would kind of suck. But all that said, I can't really stop this, but I can kind of screw with that stuff. So what I want to do, and this game has some weird green track, but it doesn't have weird brown track. So I may be able to screw things up with a branch going this way out of there. That'll prevent anyone... Yeah, how much do I care? Yeah, I'm worried about this entryway here. The big CNR coming out and doing nasty stuff. So I think this is... Well, then there's this hex too. But I think I'll upgrade this hex to make it defensible. As a result of that, we of course will go to a merger round, which can't happen There are no more public corporations left. Only one private or minor left. To the next operating round. Now I'm going to do something kind of weird here. I'm definitely going to stop on this operating round, but I think I'm going to load up on this one. We've got one big piece of information still left to process, which is what happens after the NYC buys this. I'm not going to see those runs in the next operating round, though. The NYC goes here, and the NYNH goes here, which means I'm going to be seeing a 5 run for the NYC and an 8 run for the NYNH and H, which I think it's time to load up. I think it probably was time to load up last stock round, but after the stock round. So I'm just going to go up at this point, and I think we're probably in the tail end of the game from now on, where very little of interest is going to happen. People are just going to be collecting money. Runs are going to improve. Some of them are going to get cut a little bit. There might be some impressive stuff with like the Canadian National, but I think the story has been mainly told. And so we'll load this one.